Karens are all about me, and I. They're just a bunch of toddlers, really. Just a bunch of rugrats. Today on rLounge, these Karens need a timeout. At first, watch out. This Karen knows how to pick locks. Another, I wanted this house, EP. Almost 30 years ago, my dad retired from the army. That's important to the story. And we all moved from the barracks to an entirely different country. Not overly fun for me or my sister, because she'd just joined secondary school and didn't want to leave her friends behind, and I just didn't want to move again. If you're not familiar with the British Army, soldiers used to get posted places, invariably places like Germany, Switzerland, Cyprus, etc. It was 50-50 if the whole family was posted with them, depending on how long they were away for. By the time I was 8, we'd already moved at least 4 times. That I can remember. Anyway, the Ministry of Defense used to have old soldiers' quarters in places, and when the barracks in the areas no longer needed them, retired soldiers and families would get first dibs on the houses. Mom and Dad found this house and we set about packing up, again, and moving, again. But this time for good. Yay! About 6 months after we'd moved in, we'd almost made it our own and had some family friends over for dinner. We're all in a dining room. Oh, like an actual room, separate from the kitchen and living room. I know, I was amazed. I'd never seen one. Sitting to eat, and I mean all of us. Grandparents, 2 cars. 3 sets of friends, 3 cars. Us, 1 car. So it's very obvious from the outside that the house is not empty and a lot of people are there. Dad looks up from eating and his jaw drops. There is a woman just wandering around the garden. She's sniffing the flowers, looking in the windows, and generally behaving as if the house was a horse for sale, checking its metaphorical teeth. It wasn't even as if she could have just walked down the side of the house and into the back garden. She would have had to unlock and open 3 gates. Dad goes out with a couple of his mates, all ex-army and rugby types, big blokes, hard to miss, G and B. And this woman glances at them, then continues poking around the garden trying to get into the shed. What do you think you're doing?
Why, I'm looking at the garden.
Well, you say that? Why? What are you doing here? This is my house. Get off my property. Who do you think you are?
My son was going to buy this house. I want this house. I wanted to see what I could do with the garden when he buys it.
What the F do you mean? When he buys it? It's not for sale. I live here.
No, you don't. My son wanted to buy this house.
Mate, we're going to go check on the families and call the police. You okay with her? Yeah, make sure the kids stay inside. Get the hell off my property.
It's not yours. It's mine. I live here.
By this point, we've opened the window to get a proper listen, and Mom has lost her crap. Proper mama bear reaction. Her 2 babies are inside, along with 6 other kids that she's known their whole lives. She flies out the door.
Get the hell off my property. Get away from my husband. Get away from here.
Calm down, love. It's okay. Go inside. I'll get rid of her.
Who do you think you are? This is my house. Get away from me, you crazy fat witch.
Dad has to grab Mom on the way past before she ends this woman.
I don't want some unhinged woman in my house. Get off my property.
Thankfully, the police arrive and escort the woman off the property, telling Dad to invest in locks for the gates. Dad's turn to lose his crap. He explains loudly at length to police that this woman had to unlock a few gates and shows them how the woman got in. As they're getting her to the car, she declared that she'll get us out of her house. It's her son's house. She lives here. She'll get us out. Dad tells police he's pressing charges. Woman's tone changes. Suddenly, it's not her son's house at all. She didn't mean any of it. She's very sorry. She can't be charged. I don't know what came of it in the end. Mom and Dad wouldn't tell us. But I still remember trying to work out if she was crazy or what. But either way, we still live in the house. And we all still love it. It's got a dining room. Let's see what the community has to say. Redfield 19 says, I understand the frustration of moving so many times. We're not in the military and I can't count the number of times we moved. I went to 3 schools for 6th grade. Glad you finally got a real house. Next thought from The Sleepy Mermaid. This woman sounded legitimately like Alzheimer's patients I've had who were dead convinced the hospital was their house and I was intruding. DOP replies, had it not been such a quick and knowing change, I'd probably agree with you. I used to be an undertaker and we had to do Purple Angel training and what's now Dementia Friend training. Honestly, I preferred Purple Angel, but that's just me. We had a guy come in who was diagnosed with early onset dementia and it was so cruel. How he felt, I mean, it just seems so unfair that someone so young, he was only in his early 50s, would be hit with a disease that let him see what he was losing and how quickly he was losing it. I feel so sorry for anyone with dementia and their families. It's just a cruel bastard of a disease. If this woman was a dementia patient, that's certainly an interesting perspective to have. It's funny how, with this sort of context, our opinions sort of lighten and change because this woman literally wouldn't be able to help herself. If this woman did, in fact, have her senses, she had some serious balls to do what she did and speak to your mother that way. But funny how suddenly she changed her tune as soon as you mentioned charging her. Some people get a kick out of pushing boundaries and seeing how far they can go with people. Maybe this was one of those times. It's quite bold of someone to square up with a bunch of men like your dad and his friends. What do you think of this trespassing? What would you have done? Next up, a Karen in a hurry to go nowhere. Entitled lady needs gas now, with some minor instant karma. This one happened just yesterday. I pulled into a gas station and settled in the shortest lane for left side fueling cars, as most are. I don't know why, but I've never liked filling from the wrong side, even though the station allowed it. The lane I'd gotten into had the front pump shut off with a cone beside it, but there was only 2 cars ahead of me in line, so not too bad a situation. After about a minute in line, this lady in the lane to the right pulls the front end of her car over like she wants on the left side, incidentally blocking both the pumps on the right side as well as the middle lane for pulling through. I see what she's doing and have a sneaking suspicion she thinks she can sneak in front of me. And sure enough, once the line moves up, she starts pulling forward. I am, however, mere inches off the next car's rear bumper in anticipation of the move and do not let her in. So here I am, next in line to the pump, and there she is still blocking 2 lanes. I don't make eye contact as the North American dipwad has been known to take this as a sign of aggression in the wild. May as well have done it, as once my action became clear, she honked her horn repeatedly and began yelling unintelligibly, pointing at my car. I simply gestured toward the right lane and ignored any response. Another minute passes, and one of the cars filling in the right lane leaves. This does not sit well with those behind Mrs. Dipwad, still yelling and gesturing, began honking their horns. I don't know what had passed through her mind then. I know what didn't though. The idea that she could perhaps use the pump on the right, or, were she the patient sort, reverse her car and get in line behind me. She was steadfast in her certainty that she was in the right, and that she could simply sit there until something, I'm still not sure of what exactly, brought the scales to justice. More honking, eventually the cars behind her pull into other lanes. Now, I need to explain. I could have very easily slid over to the right and filled up there, but to my mind, that was her pump. She'd waited in line, sort of. So that's only fair. I was more than content to wait my own turn. Dipwad was dead set on her path, and it wasn't my business to address any part of it. At this point, the lady at the pump in front of me approached my already open window and informed me that there was something wrong with the pump. It was going ridiculously slow, and she said I was probably better off going elsewhere. She was a soft-spoken sort, so Dipwad didn't hear it, being mid-tantrum. So I slid over to the right, did a bit of parallel parking to get past Dipwad and in front of the pump, and began filling. I like to imagine the smug look on her face as she beat the next car rather than let them take her spot in line. She ended up still having her rear end in the middle lane. Only by the time I'd filled up and started my engine, that nice lady at the excruciatingly slow pump was still there. I'd seen that phenomenon once before. When the tanks get low, the pumps start working so slowly that it can take almost 20 minutes to fill a tank. Not sure why that lane was having a problem, but the one on my side was only a little slower than usual. But I wasn't going to question good fortune. What got to me, and what made me write this, was how every break went my way, and how if she'd done almost anything different, the result would have changed. Obviously, if she'd stayed in her lane, she would have come out fine, and I'd have to go into another lane or wait longer for the slow pump. Or, if she'd gotten behind me, I'd have told her what the nice lady told me. If she'd not been stubborn and simply used the right pump, the same would have occurred. Heck, if she'd just calmed down in time, she might have heard what the lady said and gone to the other pump first, still being a jerk, but minus the karma. Sure, it's petty. Dipwad didn't go full-blown Karen and get out of her car. No one called the police. Still, she got stuck waiting entirely through her own actions after breaking social norms for selfish reasons. And I found the result immensely satisfying. One quick response from Tria Jace. This reminds me of a story where, on the way to a similar gas station, this guy was driving terribly, weaving in and out, getting honked at left and right, cutting people off, etc. Just end up in the same place, at the same line of pumps in front of us. We pull up at the same time, and both him and my husband get out at the same time. Having just battled it out on the road, they look at each other, and my quiet, calm-natured husband looks at him, smiles, and asks, "How are you?" He quickly looked away and stared at the floor the whole time. I like to think he was self-aware for just a moment and embarrassed as heck in the moment. Things like these always remind me of an age-old tale, The Tortoise and the Hare. Patience is a virtue, an important one at that. But karma doesn't wait around for anyone. Sometimes we get instant karma, as in this case with this woman. What do you make of this? Tell us your story in the comment below. Next up, wild Karens in public and their tantrums at the checkout. Double dose of entitled Karens have meltdowns. Karen number 1 was in front of me in line at a big box home improvement store. This store offers a mail-in rebate, and the shelf price lists the price after said rebate, but clearly states this. So the items ring up at the regular price, not the rebated less price. And she starts losing it on the cashier, saying she is being overcharged. Manager is demanded. The line is held up while the manager explains the rebate situation, and walks Karen to the shelf to show how it says the price is reflected after the rebate is applied. Karen and manager return, with Karen raging that this is illegal, false advertising, switching bait. She wants to call the police, attorney general, God, etc., and proceeds to have an absolute meltdown. Everyone is rolling their eyes. Meanwhile, Karen number 2 is behind me, and now sick of waiting in line. So sees someone at the till the next aisle over and barges over there demanding to be checked out. The person at the register explains that they are just there to clean the area. There is no cash drawer. They are not logged in and cannot check out customers. Karen number 2 does not care. She will be paying by card, so who cares if there's no cash drawer? Just log in and check me out. I've been waiting. Employee states she can't log in. She's only there to clean the station. Karen number 2 now melts down completely because she has lost her place in line and demands a manager come over and open the aisle to check her out, so she does not have to go stand in another line. End results? Karen number 1 has been told by everyone around her that this store has advertised like this forever and don't like it, don't buy, go away please, and just gives up and pays. Karen number 2 has to find her way back to the end of another line with a big red face. I leave 5 minutes later than expected, seeing 2 Karens at large in the wild get put in their place. 10 out of 10, worth the delay. The community also has some thoughts. Cy Lazarus says, I'm guessing she blew her top over an 11% discount. You have my sympathy. Too many times, us innocents get caught up in Karen's drama storm. Hail, hath no fury, like a Karen scorned. Next thought from Spear Up Your Rear. I see so many examples of the second person, both as a retail employee and as a customer. If there's any length of a checkout line at all, and an employee gets within 20 feet of an empty register, someone will assume the register is about to be opened up and they'll go charging at it, expecting to be rung up before a new line starts. And then they throw an absolute fit when the register can't be opened. More than once I've seen 2 entitled customers charge at an empty register at the same time and start arguing between each other for who can go first at a register that wasn't going to be opened anyway. Yikes. That's embarrassing. I guess both of these Karens don't realize there's a big, wide world out there full of people other than themselves. It's unfortunate that they behaved like toddlers in public like that. Maybe their parents didn't pay them enough attention as young ones. What do you think? And thank you for joining us today on our lounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content or our channel, share that with us. We'd love to hear from you.